Hello and welcome into episode 2 of the Strive Sports Podcast. As always, I am your host, Keegan Hartman. First and foremost, for those who have yet to listen to our first episode with Scooby Wright III, which we recorded and aired last Saturday, y'all make sure you go check that out. Scooby, obviously a linebacker who played for Arizona, the Arizona Wildcats, during the span of 2013 to 2015, one of the most prolific, one of the most coveted linebackers to come out of not only the University of Arizona, but the Pac-12. Y'all make sure to go check that out, go listen to his story. Really neat, really insightful, and it's just great to catch up with Scooby Wright. Of course, he's been playing with the Birmingham Stallions, a two-time USFL champion with them, having won this past season and the season previous. For today, this particular guest will likely be a much more familiar face, and that's no knock on Scooby, no offense to Scooby whatsoever and his resume. But my next guest here on the Strive Sports Podcast actually homed from the same region in which Strive Sports was cultivated. Actually attended the same high school as myself, that being Webb City High School here in Webb City, Missouri. And that leads me to my esteemed guest's background at Webb City as a Cardinal. So during his 2014 to 2015 campaign, or what would have been his senior year at Webb City High School, Kiante Hardin would be a part of arguably one of the most storied football teams ever assembled at Webb City, helping to lead the Cardinals to a 15-0 record, ultimately winning the MSHAA Class 4 state title in Missouri that season. That would be the 5th consecutive title that year. It would count as the 5th consecutive title for Webb City, as they would go on a huge run, winning, I believe, 7 titles over that span. 13 state championships at the time, that being the 13th, 17 overall for the school. As a two-way athlete, Kiante Hardin would record a book of a stat line, recording 32 receptions, 684 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, and just for a little context for those who are unaware, the primary architecture of the modern-day Webb City offense, actually really for the past 30 or so years, it's been predicated on the run game. Split back veer has been the primary bread and butter for that high school. But going back to his stat line, 213 rushing yards, 684 receiving yards, 213 kick return yards, and 91 punt return yards that year in his senior year in 2015. His junior year, even better. 24 receptions, 458 yards, 11 touchdowns. Still productive, still efficient, and still a vital piece of that Webb City offense. 79 rushing yards, 458 receiving, and 126 kick return. And in 2015, also, not to mention, Kiante was also a defensive player. When he came out of high school at Webb City, he was listed as an athlete. He would ultimately go on to play at the University of Minnesota. But 32 tackles with 1 interception his senior year. Junior year, same kind of production, 41 tackles with 4 interceptions. Sophomore year, 30 tackles and 7 interceptions. In total, Kiante would conclude his career at Webb City with 56 receptions, 1,142 receiving yards, 19 receiving touchdowns, and 29 total touchdowns over the span of his career as a Cardinal. In October of 2014, amid his senior season, Kiante would announce his intentions to play in his next chapter at the collegiate level, going to the University of Missouri, where, lo and behold, a familiar face for the Webb City football program and its community itself would be coaching at the time, listed as a 3-star recruit by outlets such as 247 Sports and ESPN, while ranked as the 17th best recruit of the state of Missouri, 113th best cornerback in the nation, according to 247 Sports in 2015. Hardin would be heavily recruited out of high school, ultimately playing for a former Webb City High School football coach, that being Coach Jerry Kill, who at the time would be coaching at the Minnesota Gophers football program. In 1989, going back to Coach Kill's tenure as the Webb City High School football coach, he would be the first head coach to lead the Cardinals football program to a state title. Little did Coach Kill know at the time, however, that one of his then players would go on to carry the torch for the program, propelling Webb City to 17 state titles from the years 1997 to 2022. For those who knew or know who I'm alluding to, of course, I am talking about Mr. John Roderique, the head coach or former head coach of Webb City football and the former athletic director of the Webb City High School. Lo and behold, Coach Roderique would be one to ultimately prepare Kiante not only throughout the duration of his high school career, but ultimately merging into his college career and being a beacon for Kiante as he navigated through his collegiate career. Upon arrival to the University of Minnesota Gophers program, listed as an athlete, as I alluded to earlier, Hardin wasted no time in establishing his resume. As a freshman cornerback with the Gophers, Kiante would see action in all 13 games for the Gophers, recording 13 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass breakup. Not to mention, Hardin would play an integral role in the Gophers' return game, tabulating 328 all-purpose yards off of 11 kickoffs and 9 punts. He would go on to earn the team's outstanding freshman defensive player of the year. However, his sophomore year would boast an even more an even more better campaign on the field. In 8 total games for the Gophers, Kiante racked up 39 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 6 pass breakups as a cornerback, likewise a whopping 260 kick return yards. After some unforeseen off-the-field matters near the conclusion of his sophomore season, Kiante would ultimately revert to Division II college to finish out his collegiate career. In 2017, Hardin would find himself with the Pittsburgh State Gorillas football program, located about 30 miles just west of here in Webb City. He'd be redshirting his first season for the Gorillas in 2017. Riddled by injury in his second season in 2018, he was limited with the Gorillas. However, Kiante would finish strongly in the final season with Pitt State in 2019. Across his 11-game span, he nabbed 27 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 15 passes defended, 4 interceptions, and 1 touchdown. His resume would land him an invite to the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl in 2019. All that said, Kiante has embraced many opportunities and stints with professional football leagues, including the NFL, the CFL, and most recently the USFL, where he had played with the Michigan Panthers this past season in 2023. Of course, you can find him and follow him at Kiante Hardin on Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, a secondary sensation, a hometown legend, Mr. Kiante Hardin. Kiante, happy Friday, my friend. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Just really has been training, trying to get my body right. I feel like I didn't really have the season I wanted this past season. So I'm just trying to hit it full steam, early as I can, do some Pilates, working out 4 times a week, and just really get after it. So, I feel like I can do something this next season.
Oh yeah. And we talked about it off camera. You had said that you had sustained a couple of hamstring injuries. And if I'm not mistaken, you had said an injury to both hamstrings. Take me through the rehabilitation process for somebody that might not be familiar before we dive into your history and our connection in terms of where we come from. Just take me through kind of this season and what it's been. I know it's been a little bit of a challenge. Just take us through what you've kind of been enduring with the whole the injury bug and whatnot.
Yeah. So, initially, in camp, I was starting, I was doing pretty well. And then at the end of camp, because I was in Michigan, so it was still a little cold there, Birmingham, that's nice weather the whole time, but start off, cold weather. So there's times where we'd wear sweats and stuff to practice. And just kind of like how, I feel like the cold and stuff being a little cold, just, running full speed and stuff, stopping and starting,
right.
Just ended up getting hurt. Tweaked my hamstring. Wasn't really sure of the severity of it. I knew it was pretty good because I've really never had a hamstring injury where it's like I've been out for, maybe I've kind of tweaked it and been out for a couple of days, but I hadn't really ever went through an experience with hamstring where I actually hey, you're sitting out for a little bit. You can't do anything. So for me, I was just kind of trying to be patient with it. I knew, I didn't want to rush it. A lot of my teammates were actually really helpful in the process of just telling me it's, it's hamstring. You don't want to rush it. You want to take your time. The training stuff we had there were really, 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 really helpful and just keeping me level headed and not letting me get too down or, because it really was an experience, a process. And, it's a 10-week season. So, missing 3 weeks, 2 weeks, that's a good little chunk of the season, before it's week 4, week 5. So,
right.
for me, I was trying to, be patient, but at the same time, trying to do what I could to get back on the field. But I think ultimately, like my coaches and stuff and staff were really patient with me and helped me, and I was able to start playing, like, I want to say week 4, and it was probably a little early, week 5, I think,
Mhm.
a little early. And, I was able to get through the whole game, play. And then I want to say week 7, I was running down on punt and happened to do the same thing to my other hamstring, grade 3 hamstring tear. And so that was kind of the end of my season for me. But
Well, before we get into, because, you and I have kind of a connection. Not only did we attend the same high school, Webb City High School, but obviously the USFL season, I was working with the Birmingham Stallions, covering them and their social media side. You, of course, were playing for the Michigan Panthers in the Northern Division of the USFL. We'll circle back to the USFL later on in our conversation, but let's kind of build this timeline. I want to revert back to your time at Webb City. So in my intro, I allude to your senior season. Obviously, throughout that duration, from your freshman to senior season, you know what? We could even revert even further back. I want people to I want to paint the picture and what kind of makes Kiante, what makes him tick, what he comes from, his background. So going back to your childhood, what really gravitated you to football? Because I know that you said in an interview, football wasn't necessarily your first love, but rather basketball was, and you excelled at track as well. So kind of take us through growing up and what Webb City, how it kind of motivated you or inspired you to take on football as a passion.
so for me, my dad, he played basketball at Missouri Southern. So, that's right next door to where we're from. My mom played basketball. She actually had a scholarship too. Like at the same time she was having me. So she ended up not pursuing it. But I think just being around, I think at a young age, just being in the gym with my dad when he's playing in men's leagues and just kind of, I feel like it's like that subconscious, like you're just there and like it kind of like before you know it, you kind of end up liking it, loving it, and then wanting to do it yourself. And so I think it just stemmed from that initially. And so basketball was just kind of like my first sport that I loved. And then, growing up in Webb City, football is obviously that's king, that's what everyone plays. That's the thing that, boys of the fall, that's kind of like the whole mantra there. And so I just feel like, you grow up at a young age and you kind of go through the system of playing, you see all the teams, you wear your jersey on Friday nights to the game, you're running around, you're just, waiting for your time to actually, be on the field in high school and kind of go through that whole, um, I guess like scenario. I don't, what I'm saying, just go through that. And it's just, it just builds up. So, you go in youth and like it's kind of interesting. I feel like I don't even know if it's even something anyone else does, but like, you're running the same plays that you run at the high school team runs, in junior high, and you're like getting it at a young age. So it's like you building this just like machine of like doing the same thing for years and years and years. And the system, you're doing, it's like you've done it for years, 5+ years, 6+ years by the time you're a senior. And so, I mean, and it's just like tradition, I want to say when I was in 8th grade, they won a championship.
Mm-hmm.
My freshman year, they won a championship. So it's just like, you don't want to be the team that doesn't. That's just kind of what it is. It's like almost like Alabama football, but in high school for, in the area. So
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point because it's actually one of my talking points here. So you go back through and what Kiante, for those that don't know about Webb City, what Kiante is saying about Webb City's program, like it's not a joke. You go back through like elementary school, as you alluded to, you're taught the same gist of plays all the way up until high school. And it's almost like it's basically units of a book is the best way to explain it. Is you're gradually learning over time each part. Obviously, when you're younger, you're not going to have as much of the capacity to take up a playbook, but you gradually start to learn and mature into, your respected position. Sometimes you may switch, but it's like it's embedded in you almost to the point once you get to high school, it's just like, anything else that's added is really minute and small. You kind of get the general picture once you get to high school. But, fast forward to your high school career. We get to your sophomore year. Let me just run down the stat line real quick. So I'll start at the senior year and we'll make our way down to the sophomore year. 32 receptions for 684 yards, 8 touchdowns. And obviously, it was in a split back veer offense, which is mad impressive. In total, your yards count was 213 rushing, 684 receiving, 213 kick return, 91 punt return. Does that sound about right?
Sounds right. I mean, it's been a little bit, but yeah.
Been a minute. Junior year, 24 receptions, 458 yards, 11 touchdowns. And then going back to your sophomore year, you played sophomore year, 32. I apologize. You were a two-way player. Defense as well, 32 tackles, 1 interception. Your senior year, 41 tackles, 8 interceptions. Your junior year, sophomore year, 30 tackles, 7 interceptions. Okay, before I break anything else down, I want to kind of talk about you being a two-way athlete, because I know it's common in high school, but what was it like embracing both sides of the ball? Was it something that you were used to going up in elementary? And, were you willing to embrace the role? What was the workload like for you getting into high school?
I would say like just growing up, it's like I think everyone wants to play offense when they're young. You want to play running back, quarterback.
Right.
And so growing up, I think like first is like your first love is kind of just playing offense and getting the ball, trying to score touchdowns. And then but obviously we had like 2 or 3 teams like Webb City Blue, Webb City Red. So there's not that many kids on the team, so you can play both ways. You're usually going to play offense and defense growing up. And then, I would say by the time you get into high school, it's like a platoon. So you know what I'm saying? You want to have just kids on offense, kids on defense, but there's a couple that play both ways. Some like offensive linemen that might have played D tackle, guard, and then receiver, corner, stuff like that.
Was your first passion defensive back, cornerback, or was it receiver?
Honestly, it was running back. I played running back all the way like until my freshman year, and then my sophomore year, I didn't play any offense at all, which was like, that was it was weird. It's like my sophomore year, I didn't play in it because I played varsity, and so they just had me play defense, play corner.
Yeah,
and I wanted to play offense like JV, or I wanted to try to get in JV games or something to play offense, but it was just stick to playing defense right now and focus on trying to win a championship, which is cool with me, and
just a quick side note. Sorry if you hear any commotion in the background. I've got family in town, so it's a little busy. But anyway, back to our conversation. So interesting that you mentioned running back. Growing up around the same timeline, you would have seen Maddie and Phoenix Johnson come through this wheelhouse. Guys like Jamison Katie, I think, also played at Webb City High School. Were those kind of some of the influences? I know not a lot of the listeners will kind of get an idea, but for those familiar with Webb City, they'll know those names. But were there any guys ahead of you that kind of just ushered in like, oh man, running back that'd be solid for me?
No, for sure. Really like in 3rd, 4th grade, Marty Rogers, he was
okay.
That's like the same time he like hurdled someone in the game. And he was like, so that was a really big, I want to be like Marty Rogers. Landon Zirkle, he was always making one-hand catches and stuff and making the spectacular catches. Then obviously Phoenix and Maddie were big influences. They were like right above, like my 8th grade year, and then 2 grades above me in Phoenix. So yeah, they're definitely both inspirations for me. And yeah.
Well, I want to kind of, I guess, not divert, but segue into another key integral role in your high school career. A guy who just concluded his career with Webb City High School. He was the AD and the head coach, taking the Webb City Cardinals to 17 state championships. Obviously, you played for 2 of the most coveted names in Webb City coaching history, that being Coach Jerry Kill at Minnesota and Coach John Roderique. Not a lot of people have been able to say that they've done that, especially at your age. I couldn't think of anybody off the top of my head besides you to be able to play under both of those coaches. But I want to start with Coach Rod first. What was it? How significant was his relationship in pushing you through your high school career and then even merging into your college career, knowing that you were going to go play for Coach Kill, who I would think is probably got some of the same nuances, some of the same kind of vibe, I would imagine, since I mean he did coach Coach Rod in his high school career. Kind of take me through how what Coach Rod meant to your career and how he kind of developed you for the next level.
No, Coach Rod was definitely really big on my career. I feel like he's just like growing up. He was just even like at a young age, he was like a legend. That's someone that he'd come down to like watch us practice, like all the youth practices, and like you coach Rod, and you just want to like you're kind of in awe at that point. And I actually had a relationship with him at a young age. When I was in third grade, like really when I was in elementary school all the time, like I would go to St. Louis in the summer and go to my dad's. And in third grade, that's when you can first play tackle football. And I missed sign up, so I couldn't play tackle. And so I ended up playing flag football one more year. And I actually played on Tyson's team, Tyson Roderique, his son. And so I feel like it kind of grew from there. I kind of established a relationship with him from there. And going on to high school, he just pushed me. I mean, it was just like things like me working out with other DBs or receivers in the weight room. He put me with the running backs. It's, what I'm saying? You're familiar with Tyler Davidson. He was a really strong, hard work ethic kid. And he put me with them, and it just like made me want to compete more, and just kind of, that just helped me just really like, had someone I had to like, because they're a little stronger. They're probably like lifted 10, 15 pounds heavier than me. So it's just like, okay, I want to be as strong as them now. So now I'm pushing myself even more. It's like, you're not getting content. You're always kind of trying to get better, and obviously having them stronger than me just made me have to, work harder.
Would you say that some of the ethics that are, I guess, intangibles that rubbed off on you through the lens of Coach Rod and his coaching style, I guess the hard work ethic, the grinder, the grittiness, the relentlessness. I mean, those all seem pretty synonymous for anybody that comes through that wheelhouse. But just a firsthand perspective to confirm that, like some of the intangibles that you still carry today because of Coach Rod.
No, for sure. I think like it's just going through the program at a young, like freshman year, like you're going to weights at 7 a.m. I don't think like it's just crazy. I think like when you're going through, you don't even realize it till after the fact. You're like, wow, like we're really like a mini college, how we run things, how it goes, and how you like get up at 7 a.m. Like you don't like go to vacation in the summer. Like you plan your vacation around like the summer weights break. You don't. So it's just like everything is just like kind of revolves around football, and just like being like together and working out 7 a.m, doing this, conditioning, lifting, everything. And so it's just, I think like, yeah, I definitely say it instills that work ethic and drive and just determination for sure.
And then to pivot, you go to, your senior year, October of 2014, if I'm not mistaken, you make the decision to commit to Minnesota, ultimately signing and attending the University of Minnesota. You're going to play under a guy by the name of Coach Jerry Kill, who was the first head coach to lead Webb City to a state title in 1989. And then, so transitioning over that next summer, were you quick to pick up on any of sort of the nuances, or I guess any of was there a translation in coaching style between Coach Rod and Coach Kill when you got on campus to the University of Minnesota? Did you notice anything that was similar in how they coached, something different?
I would say just their ability to like get the best out of you. Like, what I'm saying? I think it's like takes a special coach to be able to, know how to talk to each player and know how to get them going, how to motivate them, and, get the best out of them. And I think they both had that trait, and it really helps. And, that's why they're special coaches.
Right. You going into the Big Ten back in 2015, and in an interview you did with the NFLPA, I know that you were invited to the NFLP bowl game. I believe it. Can't even remember the name of the bowl game, but you were invited to it in 2019 when you had played at Pitt. There was an interview you did, and it basically you had said one of your favorite opponents or favorite teams that you ever played against was against Ohio State, or I guess favorite moments of playing in your collegiate career was against Ohio State your freshman year. You're playing against guys by the name of Michael Thomas, Ezekiel Elliott, I believe Cardell Jones, I want to say, was playing there. So was Curtis Samuel. The Big Ten in general is just a huge beast. Next to the SEC, I would say the Big Ten is the second best Power 5 conference. It's a little.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad it wasn't me that said it.
Wait! I said that wrong. I said next to the SEC.
No, for sure. It's SEC, but then I think that I feel like there's always a debate between ACC, Big Ten, Big 12. Even they think that so.
No, you just got to settle the debate here, Kiante. You just got to say, hey, look at how much we've produced and look at how much the Big 12 and the ACC has produced. So, I mean, there really isn't an argument, because the Big 10 is strongly represented, seriously, strongly represented in the college football playoff. They have a tremendous like all their programs they groom like it literally a factory for NFL draft prospects. When you look at on paper how many they produce a year, but when you're going up against guys like that as a freshman, especially, it's got to be intimidating because you're going up against guys that are going to be some of the, in all honesty, some of the stars of the NFL, and it's got to be a great litmus test as a freshman.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it's just like playing as a true freshman. That's a dream, and I feel like you really. It's weird. I get like it's kind of weird to say, but I feel like you don't have pressure on you when you're a freshman. Like it's like you're a freshman, so like no one really expects much from you. So it's like you're going out there, obviously for them to even think to even keep you and play you as a true freshman, that means something. So like I feel like having that confidence for my coaches and stuff, and then obviously just going through practice and just getting a feel for things.
Yeah,
as a whole, I feel like that was just kind of all I really needed, and I didn't really feel like it was pressure in a sense.
I missed a key component here, backtracking to kind of entering into Minnesota. On top of Coach Jerry Kill being there, what gravitated you towards Minnesota? Because I know you were recruited. I think West Point was recruiting. Iowa State, I want to say, was on the docket. Mizzou, I think, I don't know if they had offered or whatnot. There were schools around here with definite interest, but why Minnesota, I guess, is my question.
So I had some interest. Like I didn't really get Mizzou until like literally like the day before signing day. They tried to do something last minute, and so it was kind of like, if you don't want me, from the get-go, or what I'm saying, early on, you want to go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. So that was a big thing for me. And I saw a link too for Coach Kill, or not Coach Kill in particular, but like coaches in college football. And he was number 2 on this list of where other college coaches would want their kid to play for or son to play for. And so that was big to me. Like, man, he's number 2 on all these other, all these other coaches feel that highly of him.
Right.
I feel like that was a big thing. And then they recruited me as an athlete, so I could play receiver or corner. And so that was another big thing that I really appreciated, and I liked. And then on their depth chart, as far as corner went, they had 2 seniors, a junior, and then a sophomore. And so, 2 seniors are going to be gone the next year after my freshman year. My sophomore year, it's going to be basically between me and a grade above me, competing for the other spot, along with my kids in my class. But that's kind of what it was.
As a freshman arriving on campus, what's kind of the mindset? Just be prepared for, I mean, it's cliche to say, but kind of be prepared for when your number's called. I know that you had said, you'd also mentioned, I believe maybe it was in another podcast, like, when the Ohio State game had happened, I believe there was an unexpected injury to someone in the game, and you were kind of rotated and thrusted into that role. And you, it was just like game face on, we got to go. But like, were you anticipating that playing time to come quickly, or was it kind of a patience game?
No, it was definitely a patience game. My D-backs coach, he was really just like he was real strict, and like, you had to do everything right. You couldn't, which was obviously good. It makes, what I'm saying, if you can get through that, then obviously you're going to succeed. But so I wasn't really anticipating playing. I was really just doing punt return at that time. Like I was starting off punt return, kickoff return. So that's kind of where I played. And our starting corner punctured his lung doing kickoff return.
Oh man.
And so he went out, and it was just kind of like, they just put me in, and I was like,
have fun, dude.
It was kind of like just like, they put me in, and it was just like, okay, like I feel like things happen for a reason. It's it was like, I don't know. It's like, for me, it's like, oh man, like this is when I'm supposed to go in. This is Ohio State. I was literally just watching them in the national championship the year before. And so, it was just like, man, okay, like it's go time. There wasn't really much to think about. It was just like, yeah, I got to go. Like,
life comes at you quick. You talk about being a part of the return game and being a part of obviously playing corner, defensive back throughout the duration of your collegiate career. You talked about, I'm nitpicking from different interviews. I did some heavy research before I always like to study everybody and see where they come from. And it was interesting to me because I noticed in a podcast you had mentioned some of your biggest influences growing up were Champ Bailey, Devin Hester, I believe. And there might've been another one, but I can't remember him for the life of me. when you look at them as players and kind of taking or emulating some of their intangibles, how did you try to emulate and apply some of their intangibles and tangibles to your game? And how did that kind of translate over in your collegiate career at Minnesota, even at Pitt, and then even in the CFL when you were with the BC Lions and obviously with the Panthers?
I feel like just being a playmaker. I feel like that's, I think like, actually, I saw something recently. Trayvon Diggs was talking about it. Like, there's a lot of people that can play corner and they can get PBUs, pass breakups, and make plays that way. But then there's another beast to get interceptions and then return stuff like that. And that's always kind of something that excited me and was big for me. So just trying to be a playmaker was something that I want to take from them. Get interceptions, try to return returns, kill returns. I wanted to affect the whole game. I didn't want to just affect a pass breakup and okay, now it's third down. But
of all the receivers you ever lined up against at the college level, at any level ever, who were your top three most challenging? I guess no. Who were the most exciting challenges? That's the best way to put it. Who were the most exciting challenges for you? Your top three wide receivers. It could be at any level. Top three, list them off. Go ahead.
I would say Michael Thomas.
Is this in order?
No order. I'm not sure in order. I would say Michael Thomas.
Okay.
There's a receiver from Nebraska. I can't even think of his name, but he just ran his routes so unorthodox and like he would, you couldn't really like. You just had to be on your game. You had to be sharp. You had to be ready for everything because he just ran routes differently, and it wasn't just like cookie cutter routes. Like he ran everything different, stemmed outside. Oh, just a bunch of different things in that sense. So he was up there. I want to say, I can't think of his name.
5 minutes into this conversation, it's going to come back to you. I promise.
Wow. And then I would say I had two at Pitt. I had one, Lorenzo West. He was my teammate.
Okay.
And then there's a couple guys there's a couple people. I would say even like Lucky Whitehead was someone, Keon Hatcher in the CFL. Those are my teammates, but they were really good athletes, really good receivers. And so, it was definitely always a battle.
You had a pretty good luck of the draw when you look at some of your USFL competition. I believe Trey Quinn and guys like Caden Davis were some guys you were lining up.
Yeah.
In practice.
Yeah, Trey Quinn he was definitely, it's crazy because I don't really like to do research as far as like, on a team. I'm just like, okay, I'm going in, I don't really want to know their accolades and know what they've done. It's like, I got to see it myself. So I didn't really know who Trey Quinn was going into that, to the team in practice and stuff. And I seen him making plays. And then he got me one time and I was like, all right, I got to figure out who this guy is. And then I figured out, he's Mr. Irrelevant. He led the Louisiana, the state, in like receiving yards and stuff. And I was like, okay, like it makes sense. Like he's actually, but
he's
nice. At first I was like, yeah, no, he's definitely nice. There's a bunch of people that are nice. You have to bring your A game every time you're on the field.
And then I believe Caden was from Northwest Missouri. I want to say he played for the Bearcats during his collegiate.
Right. So I really didn't line up against him too much. When he was at Northwest, we played, and he like when he first, because he came like I want to say like mid-season, and he was like he was talking to me and he didn't know who I was to, like, what I'm saying. So, and I'm not saying that in a cocky way or anything. I just mean by the fact that he was like he's like, whatever happened to Kiante Hardin, number one, because he played, because I told him I played at Pitt State, and he was like, and I was like, I am Kiante Hardin. Like he's like, oh, I thought you went to the CFL, and I was like, yeah, I did. He's like, you had a pass breakup against me when he played at Pitt in the game, and I didn't even realize it. So it was kind of funny.
That's awesome. That's cool.
But he definitely was someone that was a good competitor. He was definitely good, and he's fast, ran good routes, and so
crispy.
But I really don't know exactly. I would say who the best was, but definitely Michael Thomas, the guy from Nebraska. There's really a handful of guys that really, and they're all different. They're all good for different reasons.
Well, so like, I guess, how do you kind of prepare yourself in that situation? If we can segue, if you don't mind me segueing here, you go up against guys like Michael Thomas. There has to be some sort of preparation, or I guess if it's a guy like Michael Thomas who was dominant at Ohio State and through the first few years and still a dominant receiver, but I guess, I don't know. Is it unexpected? You don't know what to expect with guys like that, or how do you prepare yourself mentally and physically to compete against guys like that?
I feel like it's from your off-season training, looking at tendencies that they have and
Mm.
studying film and having an understanding of like what kind of routes they like to run, how they like to run their routes, knowing like their releases, if they like, all that stuff kind of plays into, kind of getting a feel for who they are. But at the end of the day, as a corner, I feel like it's one of the hardest positions, if not the hardest,
Mhm.
really kind of just reacting to an extent.
Mhm. It's you talk about, it was really neat to be able to talk to some of the corners that were down at Birmingham, and kind of getting their perspective. You can attest, obviously. You would read sort of like these subtle, like they would say, okay, if so and so's messing with his gloves and not like on the line, not checked on, it's gonna be a run play. And then if he's like, if he's doing this or has something in his body language, like it's going to be a pass play. So it's just really neat to kind of go in the minds of a cornerback and understand that IQ, and look through the lens of you guys and what you guys see. I'm like, you guys make it kind of sound easy, but then again, it's not easy because you're having to study these tendencies constantly to understand what they're going to do next.
No, for sure. I think like stuff like what they're kind of saying, like you got to, if they're messing with their gloves, if they're, you can always tell receivers are kind of, in a sense, prima donnas. So, if they're not really, if they're not getting the ball, they're not really into the play. But if they're getting the ball, you can kind of can tell by their, their body language, their posture, and how they, you know, come off the ball and stuff like that.
No, yeah, 100%. So, kind of fast forwarding through Minnesota. So, yeah, after your sophomore year at Minnesota in 2017, you make the transition over to Pitt State, which is roughly about 20 to 30 minutes away from Webb City. Not a far commute. What kind of drew you to Pitt State? Why transfer to Pitt State? And uh, personally, I have an assumption, but I'll follow it up with what you have to say. But I have a take after you say it, but
Okay.
yeah, what kind of intrigued you about Pitt State?
I mean, honestly, like when I was going to the school, Florida was really big. Like I was talking to the coach at Florida at the time, and he was interested, and we had talked, blah blah blah, and then that kind of fell through.
Mhm,
Then Iowa State kind of came, same thing, kind of fell through at the end,
mhm.
and then it's kind of last minute. It's like I had to hurry up and figure out what I was gonna do. I wasn't really sure about the process of like how the time, because I played as a true freshman, so I didn't know how if the clocks kept going. I was kind of like I wasn't really sure about a lot of things in a sense. And then ultimately, like Pitt State being close to home, I felt like my mom could come and watch all the games. She wasn't able to make it to all my games in Minnesota, so it was kind of like I had all my family and friends be able to come to the games. Little John played at the time at Pittsburgh State, and so
Yeah.
he was someone that I was familiar with. And then I was gonna be able to play off. I was gonna play offense and defense more. Like they told me I was gonna be able to utilize me in that sense. So
Well, I was going to follow it up with how much did Coach Rod really? Because did you refer to, is what I was going to ask. Did you consult Coach Rod? Because I always kind of, my assumption was, I think everybody that goes through the program kind of embraces him as a mentor. Did he offer any sort of mentorship, because he had been through that program previously? That's where he played his college ball. Did you ever consult him, or talk to him?
no, yeah, definitely, definitely. He was big. He knew Coach Beck pretty well,
Mhm.
and so he was big. And then Pitt State that was a powerhouse school. That's kind of what like I was always, what I'm saying, being 20, 30 minutes away from it. That's what I was kind of knew it for.
Mhm.
People like John Brown came through,
Yeah.
had success, and so that's kind of how like I envisioned it and stuff. And so that's what ended up happening.
I believe guys like Devontae Bosby, most recently, one of the cornerbacks to come out there. He recently played for Denver. As you can tell, I'm a little bit of a Broncos. But yeah, no, they are definitely a wheelhouse for production, especially for the Division II level. They've obviously seen success. I believe they made a pretty deep run last year. I want to say they came up just short, but they had an undefeated regular season last season, and they look hot right now. They look like they're playing hot. I think they won last night on the road in Hayes, so they've been phenomenal. But you talk about obviously the injury bug 2017. I think you had redshirted 2017, your first year there. And then 2018, I think you had played a few games, but ultimately the injury bug kind of came back. What was kind of the rehabilitation process and kind of the mental and physical aspect of getting through that 2018 season, then pivoting over to 2019, your final season?
So 2018, I mean, it started off really strong. I played the first 5 games, and I was playing both ways. I was really having a success. Like I had 2 reception touchdowns, a punt return touchdown, and 2 interceptions in the first 5 games. And then going into week 6, we played Northwest, big game. We were undefeated. They were undefeated. And then I want to say this first drive for Northwest when I was on defense, friendly fire, teammate dove into my knee, ended up tearing my MCL.
Jeez,
grade 3 tear. And so that ultimately ended my season. And so mentally, it was just kind of like, man, like I started off so hot, and I was so like, had so much success, and that was kind of a bummer. And then going into my 2019, it was just kind of like, okay, like let's just, like I knew what I had just done, and so I was like, okay, let's do this, try to get back to that same spot and do the same thing. And that's kind of the mindset going into 2019. It was just, like you already had success. Let's try to,
yeah, no,
do it.
100%. And if I got the stat line, I believe I mean, you obviously know your stat line going into 2019, but for the audience that doesn't know, 2019, it was across 11 games. You had nabbed 27 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 15 passes defended, 4 interceptions, 1 touchdown. And then I believe that was, after that, you got invited to the collegiate ball in 2019. Obviously, you were coached by Hugh Jackson, who was most recently at that time was the Cleveland Browns head coach, or at least had a stint previously. Talk about kind of being around the NFL eye. I guess you can really tell the listeners about kind of what happened thereafter in 2019, and then getting that invite and how that may have, kind of put you in front of the NFL eye, and what, how it kind of went from there. Take it away, my friend.
Yeah, it definitely was a great experience, being around, other good other good college players, I think, obviously there's great players at D2 level, but I would say obviously, scouts are looking at the D1, the mid, D1 AA. Those are the divisions they're really looking at. And so for me, it was kind of like, okay, I came from a D1, but just kind of going against that competition again and just showing that, I could play at that level, play at a high level, and compete. And so, it was good to learn from the coaches, kind of have a just get an understanding from their perspective, because a lot of them are former players. And so just learning from them, taking it all in, trying to be a sponge, and really just compete.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you had a tryout with the San Francisco 49ers thereafter. I think you were a part of their camp for a little bit. What was it kind of like going through a professional camp and just trying to, I mean, obviously things didn't go accordingly as anticipated,
Right.
but you're still able to get out there and you're still able to compete with guys that, I mean, you're all with the same common goal, but I mean, it's with an NFL team. So it's a pretty
Right.
opportunity, especially being from a small town like Webb City, in which, it again, is a wheelhouse, but very seldom do you see guys, excel at the professional level. So just kind of, what did that mean to you, getting that opportunity and going out there and showing what you could do?
I mean, I was definitely thankful for the opportunity. Try to make the most of it. It was rookie mini camp, so it was really like a 5-day thing. The first 2 days, 3 days, we're like kind of going over studying, going over film, our playbook really a little bit, and then 2 days of getting on the field and competing. And so for me, it was just kind of like trying to show what I can do, try to be a playmaker, try to win one-on-ones, matchups, and compete. They had I want to say a 3rd-round corner that they drafted and a 5th round. And so, so I was really just competing with them. They had a really good safety, Hafanga. He's having a lot of success now. He's all pro this past year. So it's really neat to be able to, play with them as a rookie, what I'm saying, and get know how like they were thinking back then, and how like had, because I feel like he from the get-go, he was really smart. He was really he was really there intellectually, and he obviously had success later. So it's kind of cool to be able to like, okay, like I seen that then, and be able to
That
see success.
it's got to be pretty interesting to be able to be around, obviously you want your goal, your core intent, that being at a mini camp, at any sort of camp is, hey, I wish you nothing but the best, but I honestly, I want to kick your ass and I want to make the roster. That's the goal. That's what I want to do. Not in, the physical sense, but, being able to make a roster and be a part of the team, but in the same breath, being able to see those guys excel and being able to see those guys now and where they're at, it's got to be pretty neat. Real quick, like, because I know, first and foremost, I just got to thank you, for finding the time on a Friday night, being able to sit down with me and have this conversation. It makes my week to be able to sit down and talk to a guy that, it embodies, what it is to be a Webb City Cardinal, and just, to listen to your story and kind of hear the background and you expand upon it. First and foremost, I thank you very much. But I want to go back real quick. I want to cover your time with the CFL, the Canadian Football League. And I believe it was Ryan Phillips who, I guess there was an interview that came out and he was talking about, your intangibles as a playmaker. Obviously that was a stint that you had along your career that was thereafter, I want to say, not too distant from when you played or when you had the rookie mini camp with the San Francisco 49ers. You can tell the story better than I can. Talk about going into the CFL, transitioning first and foremost. I'm going to try to find that quote on what Ryan Phillips said about your game, but kind of talk about that transition going into the CFL, playing for BC.
Yeah, so that was like, shortly after going to the 49ers rookie minicamp, like you said. And so for me, I didn't really have a lot of knowledge about the CFL. I didn't really know any of the rules. I didn't know anything really. I just was like, I had an agent. I have an agent still, but
Mhm.
he was just like, you try to play 1 year here, ball out, then you get your chance again.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how I went into it. Had a really good camp. It was kind of because that they didn't have a season the year before because of COVID, and so it was still kind of doing COVID protocol at that time in 21. And so for me, it was just like make plays, show that, what I'm saying, show what I can do, and I was able to do that throughout the duration of camp and had success. And so I ended up starting right away. I think it was second game of the season I had interception, and then the third game of the season I had an interception. I was making plays, and then I ended up having a groin injury, and I played through it, and it just never really, I never felt right after that.
Yeah.
And then it ultimately ended up being a sports hernia.
Mm.
And so, but I mean, the experience was amazing. Obviously there's talent up there. Um, it was just I feel like I learned a lot because I played field halfback, which is like the nickel.
Mhm.
It's like the field side nickel, and then I played safety. I played corner because they really want you to be they want you to be able to do a lot of things. They want you to be able to play a lot of positions because you don't want to just have someone that can play right corner and then they can't play safety if you need to, or play nickel or play this. So I feel like I learned a lot, and I was able to really just kind of just get better at my craft and all, and for everything, and just have film at safety, corner, nickel, everything.
I watched one game of the CFL and I was like, God, I would hate to be a defensive back in that league, because you notice the field is way wider and way longer. Like, I would need an inhaler after one, just seeing the stretch of the field and everything. Is it different in terms of your coverages and everything, and how much space you're having to take up? I guess obviously because you're having to play more than just one position.
Right, no, for sure. The field is away, the width of the field is longer. Um, the end zone's 20 yards. So like if they could be on the 5 yard line and still run every single route in the route tree.
Yeah.
They can run comebacks, they can run everything. So you're really kind of just playing, so you're playing at every point of the game in a sense of as a DB. And trying to think. Yeah, another thing too is like when you're playing, like they get a running start. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they get a running start.
Yeah.
And so you really, and then it's really complex. I mean, it's crazy how people have, there's a guy on my team that played with TJ Lee. He's still playing in the CFL, and it's just crazy how you're able to sustain a long career in that league and just be successful, because like it really is like takes a toll on your body. It's like 14-week season, 18, I think 18 weeks actually, 18-week seasons, running around wider field, guarding everything, and it's you're playing a lot of man. You're playing, so that's a good other thing is you're playing a lot of man. You're not playing a lot of zone coverages. You're playing a lot of man, so you really have to be in shape, and you have to really be able just to go from 0 to 100 quick as far as like accelerating.
My name's Kiante Hardin. I lost 25 pounds playing in the Seattle workout. So Coach Ryan Phillips told, I believe, the Province in an article, he had said that you had pretty much reminded him of himself. Obviously, Coach Phillips, I guess, leads the BC Lions with the second most interceptions in franchise history. He's a Grey Cup winner, which is the Super Bowl for those that don't know, up there in the CFL. So pretty high praise from a guy that's well decorated. And if I'm not mistaken, Coach Ryan Phillips was the defensive backs coach up there when you were at BC, correct?
Right. Now he's the DC of BC Lions.
Okay. Was there, tight relationship there? Being able to pick his brain. Even I think he had alluded to some of the fact that you would right away you were trying to talk with some of the veterans and get an idea and get acclimated to the system and how they run things up there.
Yeah, I feel like he was a lot of help. When you have someone that's a former player, I'm sure, you can that just having that player, especially playing the same position, not just what I'm saying. Some coaches are quarterback, and then I'm saying they're a coach, but having someone that played the exact same position as me and being able to really just ask him questions and pick his brain and him know, exactly how it feels, what I'm saying, because some coaches, DB coaches, they might not have played it, and so they're not really like understanding how they're telling you to do something and how that actually is trying to perform it on the field. And having him that actually did everything, played the exact same position, played for the same team, and have that understanding, it was really helpful. And then having veterans like TJ Lee and Gary Peters, they were pretty big and really big and helpful for me and my success early.
Well, really, I mean, it's pretty neat to see the diverse, obviously you want to stay in one home and you want to grow and you want to cultivate. But I think in the same breath, when you look at, where you've played and the teams you've played for, would you agree that you've kind of learned a nugget, or you've taken a nugget from each part, whether it be the CFL, the NFL, or the USFL, you've taken something and kind of, adopted it into your game. Just having that diversity of being able to play across a multitude of leagues, obviously unorthodox, but if there's some sort of glimmer, would you agree that, you've kind of adopted a couple of tangibles here and there along the way?
Definitely. So quick story. When I was younger, I didn't really play baseball. But I like lived right by the King Jack Park, the baseball fields when I was younger. And so it was like a 2-minute bike ride to the baseball fields. And so me and my friend, Dalton Ford,
Yeah.
he lived on the other side. I lived on one side. We would meet there and, go and just watch the games and stuff. And it was like the All-Stars. And one of my friends, he was playing catcher, and he had told me like, hey, if you like, wiggle the bat in front when you're bunting, it messes with the catcher. And so I told one of my other friends, hey, like if you wiggle your bat a little bit, it might help with the confusing the catcher. And he was like, you don't even play baseball, you don't know anything about baseball, blah 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 blah. Like he just kind of like went off. And for me, it was just like a learning moment for me. It was like, okay, like I'm never gonna feel like just because they don't maybe have the credentials, they can't tell me something, because obviously I didn't even like I got it from someone that actually does play. So it was really like if he had said it to you, you would have taken it. And so for me, I kind of always taken that and just feel like I can always learn from anyone. I feel like fans, anyone, friends, you know. So I feel like that if as long as you're able, or not able, but willing to like take what someone's saying and try to figure out how you can apply it and stuff, you can always learn from it. So that's something that I always do. I've always done since that moment.
That's a really neat parallel. That's awesome. That's cool. I like that. I like that parallel there. So last couple questions here. What's your future going forward? You talk about, I guess the future is inevitable. Tomorrow's never promised, obviously. But you think about, what would your aspirations be going forward? Maybe it doesn't even have to do with football. It could be, in the future. This is kind of an open-ended question, to be honest. Obviously, if you want to answer to the USFL, if that's, a thing, or just kind of, tell everybody what you got going on. What's the plan here during the off season and what you're doing going forward?
So right now, the USFL, my team, Michigan Panthers, picked up my option year. So plan is to go back and play again. So playing in the CFL, got an injury. I had a sports hernia. This past year, I had my hamstrings. So I just feel like haven't really got a full season, and I feel like the last time I have had a full season, I've played well. And so for me, it's just like just staying consistent, stay grinding, staying with it. And then seeing what happens. I feel like you put in the work, and then I'm fine with living with the results. So for me, it's just putting in the work and then living with the results. Whether that's maybe a call from the NFL or playing in the USFL longer. So for me, it's just that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Well, I mean this from the heart, Kiante. You got an entire community, supporting you, and I say that with 100%. I mean, I'm a part of that community. You represented, even in your time at Minnesota, going up to the CFL and the NFL. Obviously, there's been guys like Tristan Colon, who was a part of your class, Zach Davidson. They've all went on. They've played at the professional level. Even guys, your best friend, Dalton Ford, went to go play at Arkansas State. All those guys. I'm going to tell you from a firsthand perspective, having not been an athlete or a successful one at that, to see a story like that, no matter what happens, it's always nice to see someone represent us with so much, what's the word? I guess like compassion, and you represent and embody this community. And for that, I just want to say, I appreciate, you going out there and just being determined and being able to go out there with optimism, no matter what God puts in your way, whatever obstacle, you continuously go out there and you play to your best, and it'll pay dividends. That's what I want to mention to you. So, I just want you
I
to
appreciate that.
got a tremendous amount of support around you, my friend. So last one here. We're talking about athletes, two-way athletes, and you're probably Colorado Buffaloed out at this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
But Travis Hunter, because you were an athlete, a two-way athlete, first and foremost, I'll just ask right off the bat: do you think he's going to win Heisman this year? I mean, okay, let's okay. Obviously, it's been one performance, but you
right.
120 some odd plays in one game. Holy hell, kid! Like, and you're playing it at an elite level. And this guy's trying to be like the next Deion Sanders. As a guy who played defensive back and wide receiver, I mean, obviously this helps his draft stock tremendously. It puts all eyes on him. But what do you think about his performance? And could you see him winning Heisman? I don't think an athlete has ever won, like a two-way athlete has ever won Heisman. So what are your thoughts?
No, I think first off, like Deion said, I think he is him for sure. I feel like they're gonna have, they're gonna have they have to have a lot of team success. I feel like they have a lot of tough games playing USC, even Nebraska this upcoming week or tomorrow. They got a tough schedule, so I just feel like it just really depends on how they play. I feel like it's hard to tell because I feel like him as an athlete alone, I feel like he's the guy for sure. But it's a team sport, and so wins are going to come into it. How if he goes into playoffs, makes college playoffs or not, stuff like that's all going to kind of, even though it really probably shouldn't, as far as like who's the best player. I don't know. I don't know if he'll win Heisman. I hope he does. I'm definitely rooting for him. I definitely tuned in. I tuned in all the Colorado games this year. But I would say it's kind of like basketball, like getting the MVP in basketball. It's like, it's not just necessarily the best player. It's like the best team. There's like more that goes into it. So I feel like it's going to be a hard thing to win. I think he'll get, I think he'll be a lottery pick for sure. Even, top 3 pick for sure. But as far as winning the Heisman, it's a hard feat. I hope he does, but I'm not really sure on if he will. But I hope he does. I'm rooting for him.
given the fact that, you know, certain markets are going to air the games that they know and the people they're familiar with, I'm probably going to venture to say it's Caleb Freeman this year for a second time in a row, but that's just my opinion. Best advice for someone who's wanting to be a two-way athlete, two-sport athlete going into college football, what would be the best advice you could give to someone who was wanting to play both cornerback, receiver, or whatever position may be, two-way offense, defense? What's your best advice?
I would say just play as many sports as possible. You know, growing up, don't limit yourself to playing just one sport. You know, I feel like a lot of people they think they're doing themselves, you know, helping themselves by just playing one sport or focusing on this one sport. But I think, you know, obviously every sport has its, you know, things that you can help. And, you know, if you wrestle, that's going to help you with tackling. If you play basketball, it's going to help you with your agility, moving side to side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, track's going to help you with just your speed. So I feel like, I mean, just try to play as many sports as possible. Work at your craft every day, grind, you know, and put in the work. Cause, you know, obviously you put in the work, you know, and reap the benefits. So I would say play multiple sports and just make sure you have a good work ethic, strong work ethic.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for joining this podcast, spending some time with me this evening to talk shop and talk about your career and reflecting. Tremendously grateful for it and appreciate your time, buddy.
I appreciate you having me too, man. I love this space. I love this, like, this content creation space that, you know, is going on nowadays. And I mean, I really want to get into myself, and I appreciate you having me. So
Hey, man,
thank
if you
you.
ever need some advice or anything, you hit my line. I got you.
No, for sure, for sure.
All right, buddy. Thank you for coming on.